Overnight, there were more riots. These in Berkeley, California, across the bay from San Francisco. They turned ugly fast. Protesters in the streets throwing rocks, smashing windows, tear gas, fired at them by police. Canisters thrown back at cops. Cops were injured by rocks and other projectiles. It got ugly.
And the cauldron of contentiousness not only in Berkeley, but sweeping across the country as protesters have taken over major department stores in Manhattan as part of the protests. Now, we want to point out one particular tweet by a Ferguson riot leader, a person who participated in those protests, at DeRay Mckesson. Does anyone know where Commissioner Bratton lives? Commissioner Bratton is the police commissioner of the New York City. And so to say, where does he live? What is the implicit, if not explicit, threat?
Well, being flown in from Ferguson after leading the riots there. Yeah,
exactly.
That is what it sounds like.
Exactly. This guy Mckesson was a leader at the Ferguson riots, as you just said, and he was flown to New York to lead them here. And by the way, this is not some guy off the streets. He went to Bowdoin in Maine. This is a well-educated member of the American elite leading these protests and calling for violence against the police commissioner in New York.
And listen to what these protesters are saying in the streets.
How do you spell racist? NYPD. How do you spell racist? NYPD.
How do you spell racist? NYPD. And the mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, has said in a press conference that he intends to retrain all of the force of the NYPD. And many are saying that that is making them out to be the enemy rather than celebrating them for taking care of us on the streets and making sure we're safe.
So what they're doing, what the left is doing, and it's done this before in this country, it's happened in a lot of other countries, they're making crime political. They're describing crime as a political act. And as soon as you do that, you encourage more crime. It's one of the reasons South Africa is a disaster today. It's one of the reasons New York was a disaster under Mayor Lindsay in the 60s, why it was so crime-ridden during the 70s. Nobody lived here. As a result, you lived here. You remember well.
Absolutely, I do remember.
We can get that again here.
Well, you can get that again here, but there's always the question of retraining, whether police officers need retraining in any particular city. Ohio Police Chief David Oliver on Fox and Friends earlier pushed back against cop critics. Listen to what he had to say. It's a little bit different than what you've heard.
0.17% of arrests in a year involve deadly force, and we're having a conversation like it's every time that police officers deal with someone, the someone is dying. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Here's the easy thing. Don't resist arrest. If a police officer is going to arrest you and he says you're under arrest, he or she says you're under arrest, submit to the arrest. The time to fight is in court. It's not on the street. It's not on the sidewalk or in a car or anything else. And for some reason, resisting arrest and resisting authority has become kind of the mantra of this crew that wants to protest everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think police brutality is real. I've seen a lot of it, so I would never deny, oh, it's definitely real. But it's not a one-sided equation. It's not all the cops' fault, by the way. They're not the ones looting liquor stores. Why are we giving a pass to people committing violence in the streets, acting like a lynch mob, but that's okay? Let's be real about this.
There needs to be respect for the police. I mean, you need to understand that in New York City, the police force is down. So you go back to the 1990s, it took a Democratic mayor, actually, Mayor David Dinkins, hiring 6,000 new police officers that New York City needed. So balance is absolutely important on this particular issue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done, but we don't need to be mixing politics and crime. There's separate issues.
Completely with
It's hard to ask criminals to respect police officers when they're not respecting the laws, and many say that it's because of the degradation of the family, the lack of father figures. They don't respect authority at all. Let us know your thoughts on these stories, and we'll share some of your thoughts on the air. But now we need